Welcome back to OpenLine, talking about a potential change in Tennessee open records laws in Tennessee. A lot of debate about this, a lot of passion about it. We've seen several calls talking about their concern about changing open records laws. And one thing that, as we went to break, we were discussing, all right, there are already instances, Deborah Fisher mentioned a few, where there were large charges for records to be copied. So that's already in place, that you can charge to copy records. But it's kind of, there's not a lot of guidance there, and we've seen some very large charges. I think there's concern on the part of some that once you open the door to now start charging just to see records, to inspect records, that same kind of thing can happen, and that it could reduce access. So when you hear those concerns, what do you say?
I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, Ben, but I heard those concerns in January 2013. And I said, let's have a review, let's get together. What's reasonable? What are reasonable charges? How can we ensure that citizens aren't being taken advantage of with these charges?
But what if there's not a reason? What if there's just not an answer? That some people think, okay, if you institute an income tax, then everybody says, oh, it'll be fine on the low end, but the concern is, well, later on, it kind of creeps up and up and up. Once this is instituted, how do we make sure that it doesn't just keep going up and up and up? I guess the concern on the part of some might be once you institute it, we've kind of turned the corner. So well, when you didn't hear anything back, I guess the concern, what if there's just not an answer there? What if that is in fact the case?
Well, again, I don't think that is the case. I think if everyone puts their head together and wants to find a solution, I truly think, and I'm not saying Deborah, I think there are several people who do not want to find a solution. They want to keep the status quo, and they want to keep fighting any changes and maintain whatever stability they think they have right now. I'm of a different mindset that there are reasonable changes that reasonable people can sit down and agree upon. That has not happened. I've never seen language. I've never seen a legislative proposal. I've never seen any kind of conversation from anyone who advocates on behalf of overgovernment or the press to say this needs to be changed, this needs to be looked at. I hear that in close quarters, but I've never heard those conversations publicly. Because again, publicly, I'm like, if that needs to be looked at, great. I know that there was a 2007 study committee that studied for a very long time on this issue, but that the 2008 legislation did not include and actually altered a lot of those study committee recommendations. Well, we're 7 years past that act. If there were things that made sense in 07, most likely they make sense today. Let's talk about them. Let's examine them. But again, so many people seem disinterested in having those conversations, period, because of a fear of what if, rather than an optimistic view of finding a solution that makes sense.
What do you think about that?
Well, I have an optimistic view. And in fact, when this bill came up, there was a conversation that involved TCOG, Lee and TSBA, the Tennessee Press Association, and some other interested parties like the League of Women Voters, and we asked for some things to be studied as a way. For example, we asked that we look at potential penalties. We asked that we look at ways to reduce the cost of fulfilling public records requests for everyone. And that's not what ended up getting studied this summer, but I think that shows that we really are very interested in moving this state forward on transparency rather than backward. And bottom line on that is, you know, fees for inspection just are not the answer. That's not the right answer. There's just too many negatives to that. And but there may be some other things that we need to change that will help government be more efficient. There are lots of things to look at, redactions. So there's a lot of things. So before I let each of you kind of lay out the final argument that each of you has, let's just objectively state where the process is. So, and Lee, I'll let you do that and jump in here. But where is the process at this point?
Well, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah.
The Advisory Committee to Open Government and the Office of Open Records Counsel are supposed to review the proposal, the idea, and 4 objectives around whether there should be fees, when, under what circumstances, things like that throughout the year. The public hearings were already held in September. The time for public comments, I believe, closed today. And sometime in January, the Office of Open Records Counsel is supposed to make recommendations, if any, to the General Assembly on this legislative item.
based on the public hearings where there was a lot of comment, certainly in Nashville, that didn't want to change, do you have any sense of what the recommendation might be to either one of you, or what do you think we may see in January?
Right. Well, the Office of Open Records Counsel has, or rather the Comptroller's Office, where that office resides, has said that they don't plan to make a yes or no recommendation on the legislation, that they plan to simply say these are the factors that should be considered. I think that's better than a yes or no. I'm not sure how much the Advisory Committee on Open Government is going to be involved in the discussions or in the study. As far as I know, it's simply the Office of Open Records Counsel that's going to produce the study. That group, though, is a terrific group. It's evenly divided between government representatives and sort of citizen representatives. I mean, it goes all the way from TCOG has a seat on that, some media, TPA, League of Women Voters, Common Cause, AARP, so plus every government association. So it's a great group to conceivably work out some issues. But at this point, that group is not really involved in the study.
All right, we have 2 minutes left, and
okay.
I want to give each of about a minute here. Bottom line for you, Lee, what do you want people to take away?
Right quick, I truly hope that this group and this process comes up with some productive results, some productive solutions. If it's not a fee for inspection, fine. We're looking for deterrence. We're looking for some kind of mechanism to prevent abusive and punitive requests. And the last thing that we would say is, as an association, we certainly believe that if you truly want an open government, a transparent government, and an efficient government, that you cannot condone or protect abuse on behalf of the requester or on behalf of the governmental entity.
And Deborah, what do you want people to take away?
That access to government is important, that it is essential to a democracy, it's essential to informed participation, and we need to maintain that access, and if there are some costs to it, we need to understand that that is a cost, as our own governor has said, to a democracy, it's a cost well worth paying. And so, you know, I think that people I'm glad people are getting educated about this, I'm glad people are aware of what's going on. Today was the last day to submit comments, but, you know, please stay, you know, in the loop with your local governments and where they're at on this as well. And
again, so the final recommendation, and you're saying it's not going to be a yes or no recommendation, but that's going to come down in January. It'll go to the legislature, and then it'll be up to lawmakers in the end to make this decision. The General Assembly, right?
Yes.
That's right.
All right. Okay, we are going to take a break. We're going to come back, wrap everything up. So we'll take a break, be back right after this.